Park Do-won had never seen anyone move like that. He stood frozen near the observation window of Galactic Trade Station Horizon 7, his translation device hanging forgotten in his hand. 3 Kreth pirates had burst into the diplomatic wing moments ago, their weapons drawn, their ugly faces twisted with greed. They wanted the trade agreements, they wanted hostages, they wanted chaos. What they got was Commander Yuna of House Kale. She moved like water and struck like lightning. The first pirate didn't even see her coming. One moment he was pointing his weapon at a terrified diplomat, the next he was on the ground, his arm bent at an angle that made Do-won's stomach turn. The second pirate fired at her, but she was already gone from that spot, sliding low under the blast before driving her elbow into his throat. He collapsed, choking. The third pirate tried to run. Yuna didn't let him. She grabbed him by the back of his neck, lifted him off his feet like he weighed nothing, and slammed him into the metal floor. The sound echoed through the silent room. Then she stood straight, not even breathing hard, her silver-white hair falling perfectly around her violet face. Her amber eyes scanned the room once, making sure there were no more threats. Do-won forgot how to breathe. He had read about the Valorians before this assignment. Everyone had. They were the warrior species that conquered half the galaxy. They were cold, emotionless, and brutal. They didn't laugh. They didn't cry. They didn't feel anything except the thrill of battle. But watching Yuna fight wasn't brutal. It was precise. It was controlled. It was like watching a master artist create something perfect. It was beautiful. The thought came to him so naturally that he didn't think to stop it. And because Do-won had always been the kind of person who said what he felt, he walked toward her before his brain could catch up with his legs. The other diplomats stared at him with wide eyes. His colleague, a senior attaché named Kwan Mirai, grabbed his arm and hissed, "What are you doing?" Do-won gently pulled free and kept walking. Commander Yuna turned to face him. Up close, she was even more impressive. She stood almost a head taller than him, her body covered in ceremonial armor that looked like it could stop a starship blast. Her violet skin had a faint glow to it, and her amber eyes locked onto him with an intensity that made his knees weak. "Human," she said. Her voice was deep and cold. "State your purpose." Do-won swallowed hard. But he had come this far, and he wasn't going to back down now. "I just wanted to say," he began, his voice steady despite his racing heart, "that was incredible. I've never seen anyone move like that. You were beautiful." The room went dead silent. For a moment, nothing happened. Yuna stared at him, her amber eyes unreadable. Then, slowly, her violet skin began to change color. It deepened, shifting from light purple to a rich, dark shade that spread across her cheeks and down her neck. She was blushing. Do-won didn't know Valorians could blush. Behind him, he heard a sharp intake of breath from the Valorian delegates. One of them, an older male with scars across his face, stepped forward with fury in his eyes. "Do you understand what you have done?" he demanded. Do-won blinked. I gave her a compliment?" "You did not give her a compliment," the scarred Valorian snarled. "You invoked the Vethkara. You made a declaration of bonding." Do-won felt the blood drain from his face. "I made a what?" Commander Yuna moved before anyone could stop her. She grabbed Do-won by the front of his uniform and lifted him until his feet left the ground. Her face was inches from his, her amber eyes burning with something he couldn't identify. Anger? Confusion? Something else? "Human," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "Do you understand what you've just done?" "I'm starting to think I really don't," Do-won managed to say. The scarred Valorian spoke again, his voice hard. "In our culture, praising a warrior's beauty in combat is not a casual thing. It is an intimate declaration. It is something said only between bonded mates. By speaking those words to Commander Yuna, you have initiated the Vethkara, The claiming of souls. Dowan's mind raced. Okay, that's clearly a misunderstanding. Can't we just explain that I didn't know? That it was an accident? There are no accidents in the Veth Kara, Yuna said. She still hadn't put him down. The words were spoken. The ritual has begun. So what happens now? Dowan asked. Yuna's grip tightened on his uniform. Now, by the laws of my people, I have two choices. I can accept you as my bonded mate, or I can execute you for the insult of a false declaration. Dowan stared at her. Those are the only two options? Yes. There's no third option? Like maybe we talk about this over coffee? For a brief moment, so brief he almost missed it, something flickered in Yuna's eyes. It might have been amusement. It might have been surprise. Whatever it was, it vanished as quickly as it appeared. She dropped him. Dowan stumbled, but managed to stay on his feet. He straightened his uniform and tried to look calmer than he felt. "Commander," the scarred Valorian said, "what is your decision? This human has insulted you and our traditions. Execute him and be done with it." Yuna was quiet for a long moment. She looked at Dowan, studying him like he was a puzzle she couldn't solve. He looked back at her, refusing to look away, refusing to show fear. Finally, she spoke. "I invoke the trial of worth." The scarred Valorian's eyes went wide. "Commander, you cannot be serious. The trial is ancient. It is meant for worthy challengers, not for weak humans who speak without thinking." "The trial is my right," Yuna said coldly. "I have made my decision." She turned back to Dowan. "The trial of worth will test whether you are worthy of a Valorian warrior. You will face 3 challenges: combat, strategy, and sacrifice. If you pass, you live. If you fail, you die." Dowan took a deep breath. "And if I refuse? Then I execute you now." He nodded slowly. "Trial it is then." Yuna studied him again with those burning amber eyes. "You are either very brave or very stupid, human." Dowan gave her a weak smile. "My friends say it's usually both." This time he was certain he saw her lips twitch. Guards surrounded him then, and he was led away from the diplomatic wing toward a Valorian ship waiting in the docking bay. As he walked, he looked back over his shoulder one last time. Commander Yuna stood watching him, her violet skin still flushed dark purple. Dowan had made many mistakes in his life, but something told him this one was going to be the most interesting. He just hoped he would live long enough to see how it ended. The Valorian flagship Crimson Dawn was the largest ship Dowan had ever seen. It could hold 10,000 warriors. It had enough firepower to destroy a small moon. And right now, it was carrying him toward what would probably be his death. Dowan sat in a small holding room, staring at the metal walls. He had been given food and water, but he couldn't eat. His mind kept replaying the moment over and over. One compliment. One honest compliment, and now he was trapped in an alien marriage ritual. The door slid open and Lieutenant Hanel walked in. She was Yuna's second-in-command, a tall Valorian woman with dark purple skin and a permanent frown. She looked at Dowan the way someone might look at a bug they found in their food. "Human," she said. "The High Matriarch wishes to see you." Dowan stood up. "The High Matriarch?" "Commander Yuna's grandmother, the leader of House Kale. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not make eye contact unless invited. Do not do anything stupid." She paused. "Actually, given what you've already done, perhaps that last instruction is pointless." Dowan followed her through the ship's long corridors. Valorian warriors stopped to stare at him as he passed. Some looked curious. Most looked disgusted. He heard whispers in their language, and even though he didn't understand the words, he understood the tone. They thought he was a joke. The High Matriarch's chambers were at the heart of the ship. The doors were 3 times Do-hwan's height, carved with symbols he didn't recognize. Hanul pressed her hand to a panel, and the doors swung open. The room inside was huge. Weapons lined the walls, swords, spears, things Do-hwan had no name for. At the far end, sitting on a raised platform, was the oldest Valorian Do-hwan had ever seen. High Matriarch Sora looked ancient. Her violet skin was pale and lined with age, and her white hair fell past her shoulders like a waterfall. But her amber eyes were sharp and bright, missing nothing. Yuna stood beside her grandmother, her face carefully blank. "So," the High Matriarch said, her voice surprisingly strong for her age, "this is the human who spoke the bonding words to my granddaughter." Do-hwan wasn't sure if he was supposed to answer. He decided to risk it. "Yes, High Matriarch. Though I have to say, I didn't know they were bonding words at the time. Ignorance is not an excuse in Valorian law. With respect, High Matriarch, it probably should be." The room went very quiet. Lieutenant Hanul looked like she wanted to strangle him. Even Yuna's blank expression cracked slightly, her eyes widening just a little. But the High Matriarch laughed. It was a dry, rasping sound, but it was definitely a laugh. "You have courage, human. Stupid courage, but courage nonetheless." She leaned forward on her platform. "Tell me, why did you say those words to my granddaughter? Were you trying to trick her? To gain power over House Kale?" "No," Do-hwan said. "I said them because they were true." "True?" Commander Yuna fought 3 enemies in seconds without breaking a sweat. Every move she made was perfect. I've never seen anything like it in my life. So yes, I said she was beautiful. Because she was. He paused. I didn't know it meant anything more than that. On Earth, we give compliments all the time. It's how we connect with people. The High Matriarch studied him for a long moment. "Interesting. Your species expresses admiration openly, without fear of consequence." "Sometimes there are consequences," Do-hwan admitted. "But usually not marriage or death." Another dry laugh. "I think I understand now why humans have spread so far across the galaxy. You are reckless. You act without thinking. And somehow, against all logic, you survive." She turned to Yuna. "What do you think of this human granddaughter?" Yuna's jaw tightened. "He is weak. He has no combat training. He will not survive the first trial." "That is not what I asked. I asked what you think of him." For a moment, Yuna didn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was quieter than before. "He is different. Most beings look at me with fear, or with greed, wanting my power. He looked at me with—" She stopped. "With what?" the High Matriarch pressed. Yuna's skin flushed dark purple again. "Admiration. True admiration. It was unexpected." The High Matriarch nodded slowly. "The trial of worth will begin when we reach Valoria Prime. You have 3 days to prepare, human. I suggest you use them wisely." Do-hwan bowed his head. "Thank you, High Matriarch." He turned to leave, but Yuna's voice stopped him. "Human, wait." He turned back. She walked toward him, her amber eyes unreadable. Up close, he could see just how much taller she was than him, how much stronger. She could snap him in half without trying. "Why did you accept the trial?" she asked. "You could have refused. Death would have been quick. The trial will be painful and slow." Do-hwan thought about it. "Because I meant what I said, and I don't want the last thing I do in my life to be running away from my own words." Yuna stared at him. "You would die for a compliment. I would die for the truth. There's a difference." Something shifted in her expression. It was small, barely noticeable, but it was there, a crack in the ice. "You are strange, human," she said softly. "My name is Do-hwan. Park Do-hwan. I know your name." Then maybe you could use it, since we're apparently engaged and all. Her eyes widened. For a moment he thought she might hit him. Then her lips twitched, just barely, just for a second, and she turned away. "Train hard, Park Do-hwan," she said over her shoulder. "The trials will not show mercy." She left the chamber, and Do-hwan let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Lieutenant Hanul appeared beside him. "You are either the bravest human I have ever met," she said, "or the most foolish. Everyone keeps saying that." "Because it is true?" She paused. "But I will admit, no one has ever made Commander Yuna blush twice in one day. Perhaps there is more to you than I thought." She led him back to his holding room, but her frown wasn't quite as deep as before. That night, alone in his room, Do-hwan made a decision. He couldn't match Valorian strength. He couldn't match their speed or their skill, but he could learn, he could watch, he could adapt. That's what humans did. That's what humans had always done. The next morning, when Yuna came to check on him, he was already awake, doing push-ups on the cold metal floor. "What are you doing?" she asked. He stood up, breathing hard. "Training. You said the trials wouldn't show mercy. So I won't either." He met her eyes. "Will you help me?" She stared at him for a long time. "Help you? Why would I do that?" "Because if I'm going to die, I'd rather die knowing I did everything I could. And because maybe, just maybe, you want to see what a human can do when he really tries." Yuna was quiet. Then slowly, she stepped into the room and closed the door behind her. "Show me your stance," she said. Do-hwan smiled. It was a start. Valoria Prime was a harsh world. Mountains of black rock rose toward a sky that was always dark purple. The wind never stopped blowing, cold and sharp like knives. Everything about this planet was designed to make strong warriors, and Do-hwan had never felt weaker in his life. But he didn't stop. Every morning, Yuna woke him before the sun rose. She made him run through the rocky paths until his legs burned. She made him lift stones until his arms shook. She taught him the basic forms of Valorian combat, and she didn't go easy on him. "Again," she would say, every time he fell. And every time, Do-hwan got back up. The other Valorians watched from a distance. At first, they laughed at him, the weak little human trying to fight like a warrior. Some of them made bets on how long he would last. Most said he wouldn't survive the first day of trials. But as the days passed, the laughter faded. Do-hwan couldn't match Valorian strength. He knew that. When Yuna hit him, even holding back, it felt like being struck by a ground vehicle. His body was covered in bruises. His muscles screamed in pain every night. But he kept getting up. Elder Jiwoo was the first to approach him. She was an old Valorian with kind eyes, rare for her species. She was a scholar, not a warrior, and she had spent her life studying other cultures. She found Do-hwan sitting alone one evening, treating his wounds with a small medical kit. "May I join you?" she asked. Do-hwan nodded, and she sat down beside him. "I have been watching you, human," she said. "You are not getting stronger. Your technique is still poor. By every measure, you are failing." "Thanks for the encouragement," Do-hwan said dryly. "And yet," she continued, "you keep going. Why?" Do-hwan thought about it. "Because giving up feels worse than the pain." Jiwoo smiled. "That is a very human answer." She looked out at the dark mountains. "I have studied your species for many years. You are not the strongest. You are not the fastest. You do not have claws or venom or thick skin. By all logic, you should have died out long ago." "And yet here we are," Do-hwan said. "Yes, here you are. Spread across hundreds of worlds, building, creating, exploring. Do you know what I think your secret is? Good luck?" She laughed softly. "Stubbornness. Humans do not know when to quit. You fight battles you cannot win simply because you believe you should." And sometimes, against all reason, you win them. She stood up and patted his shoulder. The trials will test your body, but they will also test your spirit. Remember that. She walked away, leaving Do Hwan alone with his thoughts. The next day, everything changed. Do Hwan was training in the main arena when a shadow fell over him. He looked up and saw a Valorian male standing at the edge of the training ground. He was tall even by Valorian standards, with skin the color of dark storms and eyes like burning coals. His armor was decorated with more battle honors than Do Hwan could count. This was Commander Tae-jin of House Morn. "So," Tae-jin said, his voice dripping with contempt, "this is the human who dares to claim Commander Yuna." Do Hwan lowered his training weapon. "I didn't claim anyone. It was a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" Tae-jin stepped into the arena, and warriors gathered to watch. "You spoke the bonding words to the finest warrior of House Kale. You, a weak, pathetic creature who can barely stand. It is an insult to everything we are." "I didn't mean to insult anyone." "Your existence is the insult." Tae-jin drew a long blade from his belt. "I have waited years for the right to court Commander Yuna. I have won 100 battles. I have brought glory to my house. And now I am supposed to stand aside for you?" Do Hwan's heart was beating fast, but he kept his voice calm. "That's not my choice to make. It's hers." Tae-jin's eyes flashed with fury. "You dare speak of her as if you know her? You know nothing. You are nothing." He raised his blade. "I challenge you to an honor duel, right here, right now. To the death." The arena went silent. Do Hwan looked around at the watching Valorians. Their faces showed no sympathy. This was their way. This was how things were settled. He knew he should refuse. He had no chance against Tae-jin in a straight fight. The smart thing to do was walk away, save his strength for the trials. But then he saw Yuna. She was standing at the edge of the arena, her amber eyes locked on him. Her face was carefully blank, but he could see the tension in her shoulders, the tightness in her jaw. She was worried. She was worried about him. And behind her worry, he saw something else. He saw the way the other Valorians looked at her, with desire, with greed, like she was a prize to be won. Tae-jin didn't love her. Tae-jin wanted to own her. Do Hwan made his decision. "I accept," he said. Gasps echoed through the arena. Yuna stepped forward. "Do Hwan, no. You cannot win this fight." "Maybe not," he said, "but he insulted you. He talked about you like you were a thing to be won. And he insulted my people." He looked at Tae-jin. "I won't let that stand." Tae-jin laughed. Brave words from a dead man. Yuna grabbed Do Hwan's arm, pulling him close. Her amber eyes burned into his. "Listen to me. Tae-jin has killed 40 opponents in honor duels. He is faster than you, stronger than you, more skilled than you. You will die." Do Hwan looked at her, and in that moment, everything else faded away. Just her, just him. "Maybe," he said quietly. "But if I run away, what does that make me? And what does it say about humans?" He gently pulled his arm free. "I'd rather die standing than live kneeling." Something shifted in Yuna's expression. Pain, frustration, and something else. Something deeper that she couldn't hide. "You stupid human," she whispered. "Yeah," he said. "I know." He turned to face Tae-jin and raised his training blade. It felt light and useless in his hands. Around him, hundreds of Valorians watched in silence. Elder Jiwoo's words echoed in his mind. "The trials will test your body, but they will also test your spirit." He took a deep breath. Then the duel began. Tae-jin came at him like a storm. His blade moved so fast it was almost invisible. Do Hwan barely dodged the first strike, stumbling backward. The second strike caught his shoulder, and pain exploded through his arm. The third strike knocked the weapon from his hand. He fell to his knees, gasping. Taijin stood over him, sneering. Pathetic? This is what humans are? This is what dares to claim a Valorian warrior? Dowan looked up at him. Blood dripped from his shoulder. His body screamed at him to stay down. He got up anyway. Taijin's sneer faltered. What are you doing? Dowan picked up his blade with his good arm. I'm not done yet. He attacked. It was clumsy. It was desperate. Taijin blocked every strike easily. But Dowan kept coming, kept swinging, kept fighting even though he had no chance. The watching Valorians fell silent. This wasn't supposed to happen. Weak creatures were supposed to surrender. They were supposed to beg for mercy. They weren't supposed to keep getting up. Taijin knocked him down again, and again, and again. Each time, Dowan stood back up. Finally, Taijin stepped back, breathing hard. Not from exhaustion, from confusion. Why? He demanded. Why won't you stop? Dowan spat blood onto the ground. His vision was blurring, his legs were shaking, but he raised his blade one more time. Because humans don't quit, he said. We never quit. And in that moment, looking at the broken human who refused to fall, Taijin felt something he had never felt before. Doubt. The duel wasn't over yet, but something had already changed, and everyone watching knew it. Dowan could barely see. Blood ran into his eyes from a cut on his forehead. His left arm hung useless at his side. Every breath felt like swallowing broken glass. Taijin had beaten him across the arena, and now Dowan stood in the shadow of an ancient stone pillar, swaying on his feet. The crowd was silent. They had come expecting a quick execution. Instead, they had watched a human take a beating that would have killed most creatures, and he was still standing. But Dowan wasn't just surviving. He was watching. From the first moment of the fight, even while taking hits, his eyes had never stopped moving. He studied the way Taijin held his blade. He noticed the small step backward Taijin took before every major attack. He saw the slight weakness in Taijin's left knee, probably an old injury that never fully healed. Humans were not strong. Humans were not fast. But humans were very, very good at watching and learning. You are a fool, Taijin said, stalking toward him. You could have yielded. You could have died with some small dignity. Instead, you drag this out like a wounded animal. Dowan said nothing. He was counting in his head. Every time Taijin attacked, there was a pattern. Step, step, slash, step, step, thrust. Always the same rhythm. Step, step. Dowan dropped to the ground. Taijin's blade whistled over his head, missing by inches. Before the Valorian commander could recover, Dowan grabbed a handful of dirt and threw it into his eyes. Taijin roared in fury, stumbling backward. The crowd gasped. Using the environment was not against the rules, but Valorians considered it dishonorable. They won through pure strength. But Dowan wasn't a Valorian. He ran toward the nearest pillar and slammed his body against it. The ancient stone was already cracked from centuries of weather. It groaned and shifted. Dowan hit it again and again, using the last of his strength. The pillar fell. Taijin cleared his eyes just in time to see tons of stone crashing toward him. He dove out of the way, but the impact threw him off balance. Dust filled the arena. When it cleared, Taijin was on one knee, coughing, and Dowan was standing over him. He had retrieved his blade during the chaos. Now he pressed it against Taijin's throat, right above the armor, where the skin was exposed. Yield, Dowan said. The arena was absolutely silent. No one moved. No one breathed. Taijin stared at him with pure shock. This is impossible. You are nothing. You are weak. Yeah, Dowan said, but I'm still here, and you're on your knees. He pressed the blade a little harder. Yield! Taijin's face twisted with rage. For a moment, Dowan thought he would rather die than admit defeat to a human. His grip tightened on his own blade. Then, slowly, he let it fall to the ground. I yield, he said through gritted teeth. The words echoed through the arena, then the whispers began. Shock, disbelief. A human had defeated a Valorian commander. It was impossible. It was unheard of. And yet, it had happened. Do-Hwan's legs finally gave out. He collapsed to the ground, the blade slipping from his fingers. The pain hit him all at once, overwhelming everything. The world started to go dark. The last thing he saw before passing out was Yuna's face above him, her amber eyes wide with something he had never seen in them before. Fear. Do-Hwan woke up in the medical wing. He was covered in bandages. Machines beeped around him, monitoring his vital signs. His body hurt in ways he didn't know were possible, but he was alive. You should be dead. He turned his head and saw Yuna sitting beside his bed. She looked tired. He wondered how long she had been there. How long was I out? He asked. 2 days. Her voice was flat, but her hands were clenched tight in her lap. Your body suffered severe trauma. Broken ribs, internal bleeding, fractured skull. The doctors said they had never seen a human take so much damage and survive. We're stubborn like that. That is not funny. Do-Hwan tried to smile but winced from the pain. Sorry. Humor is how I deal with almost dying. Yuna was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke again, and her voice was different. Softer. Why did you do it? Do what? Fight him. You knew you couldn't win. You knew he would hurt you. Why did you fight? Do-Hwan thought about it. Because he talked about you like you were a prize, something to be won, and that made me angry. Her amber eyes searched his face. You were angry for me? Of course I was. You're not a prize, Yuna. You're a person, and you deserve someone who sees that. She stared at him. Her violet skin began to flush that deep purple color again, and this time she didn't look away. This time she let him see it. You are the strangest creature I have ever met, she said. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know yet. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the dark mountains. My people value strength above everything. We conquer, we dominate, we do not lose, but you... She turned back to him. You lost every exchange in that fight. You were beaten and broken, and yet you won. I got lucky. No, you watched. You learned. You adapted. Her voice was quiet. I have seen warriors train for 50 years and never understand their opponent the way you understood Taejin in minutes. That is not luck. That is something else. Do-Hwan looked at her. Humans don't have claws or armor or super strength, so we had to find other ways to survive. We watch. We learn. We figure things out. It's all we have. It is enough, Yuna said. It is more than enough. She walked back to his bed and sat down. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then slowly, she reached out and took his hand. Her grip was careful, gentle, nothing like the warrior who had lifted him off his feet days ago. Her skin was warm against his. You have passed the first trial, she said. Combat is not just about strength. It is about will, and you have more will than any Valorian I have ever met. Do-Hwan squeezed her hand. So what happens now? Now you heal. Then you face the second trial, strategy. She paused. And then the third, sacrifice. What does that one involve? She looked away. You will learn when the time comes. He wanted to ask more, but he could see she wasn't ready to answer. So instead, he just held her hand and looked at her. This warrior who had terrified him, who had trained him, who was now sitting beside his hospital bed with flushed purple skin. Yuna, he said. She looked at him. Thank you for training me, for being here, for giving me a chance. Her lips twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. Don't thank me yet, Park Do-Hwan, she said. The hardest part is still to come. but she didn't let go of his hand. And for now, that was enough. The grand hall of House Kale was filled with Valorians. They came from every corner of the empire. Warriors, scholars, leaders, all gathered to witness the final trial. Word had spread across the galaxy about the human who fought Commander Tajin and won. Some came to see if the stories were true. Others came hoping to watch him fail. Dowan stood in the center of the hall, facing the High Matriarch. Yuna stood to the side, her face carefully blank, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. The second trial, strategy, had gone well. The Valorians had given him a war simulation, expecting him to fail. Instead, Dowan had studied their tactics, found their weaknesses, and won the scenario using methods they had never considered: deception, misdirection, psychological warfare. The Valorian generals had been furious. Dowan's methods were not honorable by their standards, but they were effective, and effectiveness was what the trial measured. Now came the final challenge: sacrifice. "Park Dowan," the High Matriarch said, her voice echoing through the hall. "You have shown combat and strategy, but the final trial tests something deeper. It tests what you are willing to give up." Dowan nodded. "I'm ready." "Are you?" The High Matriarch leaned forward. "Here is your choice. You may return to Earth, safe and free. The bonding rite will be annulled. You will forget this ever happened and return to your normal life." She paused. "Or you may stay and complete the bond with my granddaughter. But if you stay, you will become Valorian in status. You will leave behind your world, your people, your identity. You will belong to House Kale forever." The hall was silent. Dowan felt 1,000 eyes on him. He understood now why this was called sacrifice. It wasn't about pain or fighting or cleverness. It was about what mattered most to him: his home, his people, his entire life, or Yuna. He looked at her across the hall. She stood perfectly still, her amber eyes locked on him. Her face showed nothing, but he knew her well enough now to see the truth. She was terrified. She was waiting to see if he would leave. Everyone expected him to leave. That was what humans did. They looked out for themselves. They chose safety and comfort. They didn't sacrifice everything for someone they barely knew. Dowan thought about Earth. He thought about his family, his friends, the life he had built. He thought about never seeing them again, never walking through familiar streets, never feeling Earth's sun on his face. Then he thought about Yuna. He thought about the way she fought, like water and lightning. He thought about her hand holding his in the medical wing. He thought about the purple flush that spread across her skin every time he said something honest. He thought about the way she made him feel. "I'll stay," he said. Gasps filled the hall. The High Matriarch's eyes widened. Even Yuna's mask cracked, her lips parting in surprise. "You understand what this means?" the High Matriarch asked. "You will lose everything?" "No," Dowan said. "I'll lose my old life, but I'll gain something new." He looked at Yuna. "Something worth staying for." The High Matriarch studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "The sacrifice is accepted. The trial of worth is complete. The bond may be—" "Wait!" Everyone turned. Yuna had stepped forward, her voice ringing through the hall. "Commander," the High Matriarch said. "What is this?" Yuna walked to the center of the hall and stood beside Dowan. Her face was determined, but her hands were trembling slightly. "I will not let him make this sacrifice alone," she said. The hall erupted in whispers. The High Matriarch raised her hand for silence. "Explain yourself, granddaughter." Yuna lifted her chin. "Park Do-hwan has shown me something I never understood before. He fought without expecting to win. He stood up when he had no reason to. He taught me that strength is not just power. It is the will to keep going when everything is against you." She looked at Do-hwan. "He taught me that humans have something we have forgotten: Something we need. And what sacrifice do you propose? The High Matriarch asked. Yuna took a deep breath. I will step down from my command. I will travel to Earth as an ambassador for the Valorian Empire. I will work to build a bridge between our peoples. She looked at her grandmother. I will not let him lose his home. I will go with him. The hall exploded. Warriors shouted in protest. Yuna was their finest commander. For her to give up her position to go live among humans, it was unthinkable. But the High Matriarch silenced them with a look. She stared at her granddaughter for a long time. Then slowly, she began to smile. I have led House Kale for 90 years, she said. I have seen 1,000 warriors rise and fall. I have conquered worlds and crushed enemies. But I have never seen anything like this. She looked at Dohwan. You have changed my granddaughter. You have shown her that there is more to life than conquest. That is worth more than any military victory. She stood, and the entire hall rose with her. The bonding is complete, she announced. Not as a claim of ownership, but as a partnership between equals. Yuna of House Kyle and Park Dowan of Earth are bound together. May they bring honor to both their peoples. The hall was silent for a moment. Then, one by one, the Valorians began to bow their heads. Not in submission, in respect. Even Lieutenant Hano bowed, though she was scowling while doing it. Yuna turned to Dowan. Her violet skin was flushed deep purple, and there were tears in her amber eyes, something he never thought he would see. You stupid human, she whispered. He smiled. Yeah, I know. She grabbed him and kissed him. The hall erupted in cheers. 6 months later, Dowan and Yuna stood together on Galactic Trade Station Horizon 7. They were co-ambassadors now, working to build an alliance between humans and Valorians. It wasn't easy. There was suspicion on both sides, old wounds that needed healing. But things were changing. Valorian warriors came to Earth to train with human strategists, learning new ways of thinking. Human scientists traveled to Valoria Prime, studying their technology. Slowly, carefully, two species that had been enemies were becoming something else. Partners. A young Kreth merchant approached Dowan one day, his eyes wide with curiosity. Is it true? He asked. You defeated a Valorian commander with just words and willpower? Dowan laughed. Not exactly. I also used a falling pillar and some dirt. But you won. I survived. That's the human way. We don't always win, but we never stop trying. The merchant looked at Yuna, standing nearby. And now you're married to the deadliest warrior in the Empire? Dowan looked at her too. She was talking to a group of human diplomats, her face serious but her voice patient. She caught him looking and raised an eyebrow. Yeah, he said. I am. How did you do it? Dowan thought about it. I told her the truth. Turns out that's the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy. He walked over to Yuna and took her hand. Her skin flushed faintly purple, even now, even after all these months. She was still getting used to it, but she didn't mind. Later that night, standing by the observation window looking out at the stars, Yuna leaned her head against his shoulder. Do you miss Earth? She asked. He thought about it. Sometimes. But home isn't just a place. It's the people you're with. She looked at him, her amber eyes soft. That is the most human thing you have ever said. Good thing you like humans. She smiled, a real smile, the kind he had worked so hard to earn. Yes, she said. Good thing I do. Outside, the galaxy turned slowly, full of danger and wonder and possibility. Somewhere out there, other species were watching, wondering what humans would do next. Dowan didn't know the answer, but he knew one thing. Whatever came, they would face it together, and that was enough.